Hey, freedom lovers, it's William Moore. You are watching Beyond the Ties That Bind. Thanks for joining me, and I hope everyone is having as good of a day as you can possibly have right now. I'm starting a new series entitled History Nuggets. And in this episode, we'll be looking at Shays Rebellion. In August 1786, War for Independence veteran Daniel Shays led an army rebellion in Springfield, Massachusetts, to protest what he perceived as the unjust economic policies and political corruptions of the Massachusetts state legislature. Shays' rebellion exposed the weakness of government under the Articles of Confederation and led many, including George Washington, to call for strengthening the federal government in order to put down future uprisings. The rebellion, which revived the rhetoric of the American Revolution, shaped debate over the proper scope and authority of the U.S. government that ultimately resulted in the creation of the United States Constitution. In the 18th century, farmers in western Massachusetts were outraged at the taxes levied by a distant and unsympathetic government. They rebelled. The government responded by attempting to suppress the rebellion. If you thought the government in the description is Great Britain, you're wrong. The rebellion described did not occur in 1776, nor did it involve Great Britain. The farmers in question, led by the very revolutionaries who had fought against such taxes in the American War for Independence, were rebelling against taxes imposed by the state government of Massachusetts. Daniel Shay, born in 1747 to Irish immigrants, was a landless farm laborer when the Revolutionary War broke out. He joined the local militia, fought in the battles of Bunker Hill, Saratoga, and Lexington, and rose to the rank of captain in the 5th Massachusetts Regiment. He was wounded in battle and never got paid for his military service. When in 1780 he returned home to Brookfield, a rural area west of Boston, he found that he was being taken to court for debts that went unpaid while he was off fighting in the war. Since he had not been compensated for his service, he had no way of paying these debts. After attending several town meetings, Shays discovered that many other veterans and farmers were in the same situation. They banded together to petition the Massachusetts state legislature for debt relief. The legislature was at the time dominated by Eastern banking and merchant elites who did not understand the plight of rural communities. All proposals for debt relief were rejected. Massachusetts Governor John Hancock, signer of the Declaration of Independence, had refused to prosecute debtors for back taxes. But in early 1785, perhaps anticipating trouble ahead, he resigned his post, claiming poor health. He was replaced by James Bodewin, who took a much more confrontational approach. While Bodewin initiated civil actions to collect delinquent tax debts, the state legislature imposed even more taxes. The protest movement, in which Shays took active part and eventually assumed a leadership role, revived the rhetoric of the American Revolution and the colonists' grievances with British rule. Rural laborers opposed the economic policies and perceived corruption of Massachusetts state politics. Having just fought a revolution inspired in large part by opposition to British tax policies, they resented the state's levying of burdensome taxes and the terms of credit imposed by the banks. Job Shattuck, a farmer from Groton, led a protest in 1782 during which he and his followers physically prevented tax collectors from collecting on rural workers. The following year, in the town of Uxbridge, a mob seized confiscated property and returned it to its former owners. In August 1786, the Massachusetts legislature adjourned without addressing the petitions for debt relief from the rural communities. On August 29th, a group of protesters, calling themselves the Regulators, converged on Northampton to stop the county court from convening. In response, Governor Bowdoin drew up a contingency plan to use the militia to quash any such actions in the future. On September 5th, protesters shut down the court in Worcester, and Governor Bowdoin ordered the militia to quell the protest. The militia, however, sympathized with the protesters and refused the governor's order, leading Bowdoin to recruit and fund a new private militia. On January 25th, 1787, Shays led a group of nearly 1,200 protesters on a march to the Federal Armory in Springfield. Bowdoin's private militia was waiting for them, and the resulting skirmish left for 4 of Shays' followers to be killed and 20 wounded. Popular uprisings such as Shays Rebellion raised the urgent question of whether the democratic governments formed after the American War for Independence could survive. Under the Articles of Confederation, Congress had extremely limited powers. It did not have the authority to fund troops to suppress the rebellion, nor was it empowered to regulate commerce and thereby mitigate the economic hardships of rural workers. General George Washington came out of retirement to help promote a strong national government that would be capable of dealing effectively with popular discontent. Shays Rebellion led Washington and other nationals, including Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and George Clymer, to proclaim the Articles of Confederation inadequate and launch a bloodless coup d'etat in support of the Constitution produced by the Convention in 1787. The specter of armed upheavals like that led by Shays strengthened the Convention's delegates' conviction that the national government needed to be more powerful. Moreover, it changed the opinion of those delegates who had been arguing on behalf of more limited powers of the government under the Articles of Confederation. As a direct result of Shays' Rebellion, the U.S. Constitution granted powers to the states to suppress further violence. In 1788, Daniel Shays was granted a pardon by the state of Massachusetts, and he was able to return home from Vermont, where he had been hiding out in the woods. He was also belatedly paid for his 5 years of service in the Continental Army during the American Revolution. Now, the powers which were granted to the federal government by the Constitution are contained in Article 1, Section 8. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. In Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15, it says that Congress is to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress the insurrections, and repel invasions. What was going on was actually a land scheme. Congress paid farmers in scrip. State governments took land of farmers who could not pay their taxes in silver and gold. These farmers helped the fight in the War of Independence, and then were paid by the government in return with worthless scrip. Then they were told that they could not pay their land taxes in this worthless scrip issued by the government, that they would have to pay the taxes in silver and gold. So Congress then confiscated the land of these farmers and took the land in lieu of the taxes. What happened then was the bankers bought the worthless scrip from the farmers, and then the government bought back the scrip from the bankers with silver and gold. Bankers then bought the confiscated land from the states. Then the bankers sold the land and farms back to the farmers for a profit. Now this is nothing more than a Ponzi scheme, and it also reveals the heart of the men who were in charge of the government back then, and why they were motivated to create the United States Constitution, which was a governing document which would secure their power to lay and collect taxes, and not only lay and collect taxes, but to raise up a militia, to execute the laws of the Union, to suppress insurrections, repel invasions, and collect taxes. This is why men such as Patrick Henry fought vehemently against the adoption of the United States Constitution. This has been the first in what I hope to be a series of historical nuggets presented on Beyond the Ties That Bind. This is William Moore, and I hope you all have a great day. Until next time, peace.